button on the...
I pressed the record button on here as indicated by the counting timer. Yeah, the last 6 months have really been very interesting. I will do my best not to get all riled up.
Let's not go on any rants
and
here.
Be rambunctious about this. But yeah, it's been really interesting. LinkedIn used to be, and I don't want to focus on that, but it used to be sort of a way to build a network and actually have real communication with people, aside from just someone saying, "Congratulations, well done, you did great," and specifically for me, the past 6 months of being very intentional with my, posting my work, my portfolio. Here's the role I'm seeking. Here's the type of opportunities. Here are the teams that I'd like to join. And actually sending real messages, one-to-one messages with people, and then nothing. Just no response whatsoever. And then it's frustrating because then you see those people posting other nonsensical non sequiturs.
Let's clarify here. It's not always people doing those postings.
Okay, yeah, all right. That makes me feel less frustrated.
And on the corporate side now, there's so many tools for social media where somebody in the marketing team creates a series of posts, and then everybody in the company can opt in with their social media presence to get those automatically posted under their names and under their own personal accounts.
Yeah.
So although it may look like somebody is very, very active, at least from a professional and company point of view, they may not have written anything themselves in months and months.
Yeah. So what we were sort of talking about offline a little bit before we started was this de-evolution of online networking, or what is it currently? What is the current state of building your network online?
It's really interesting to me because there's really only two sites that I use professionally on an ongoing basis. One is, of course, LinkedIn. The other is Glassdoor. Right?
Okay.
Let's not forget Glassdoor.
Sure.
Those also happen to be the two most popular job posting sites, right, for high-level professionals in particular, for let's say, white-collar professionals. Those seem to be the two primary sites. So people do go there looking for information about companies, information about job openings, and Glassdoor gives you, that anonymous advice about companies from people that have interviewed at those companies, people that work there today or have worked there previously, right?
Sure.
You don't get that so much on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is very much here's my whole background. Here are all the people that I've worked with in my career.
Here's everything I've ever done.
Exactly. And then let me post some stuff to make myself look smart. Right.
Well, yeah, that was my approach too, and that's the whole reason we started building a lot of this content was, hey, look I'm posting on a regular basis. This is real valuable stuff. I'm talking about A, B, C, D.
Well, you just hit a key word there: valuable stuff, right?
Yeah.
The value that you and I, when we post things, we're trying to add value and share things that we find interesting and important. But that's not how a lot of people post nowadays. A lot of it is very self-serving. And it's not about starting a conversation. It's not about interacting with others. It's the proverbial shouting into the wind, right? Or shouting into the void. It's, hey, look at this, look at this, look at this. It's like driving by billboards rather than actually having a conversation with someone.
Yeah, so that leads us to the quote that you posted, which is a couple days ago, right?
Yeah.
Or
yesterday. Yeah.
So Eric Hoffer.
Right. Famous author back in the 70s and 80s. Yeah.
Every great cause begins as a movement, becomes a business, and eventually degenerates into a racket. It feels like LinkedIn is devolving into the racket phase.
And look, I don't want to rag on LinkedIn too much. There's still a lot of valuable content there. It's really the tools that have come along over the last couple of years that people are using for posting online content that is devaluing the experience of being on LinkedIn professionally.
Professionally, yeah. This sort of reminded me of a, and I actually conveniently this morning started writing down these things of kind of, not to be too weird, but feeling alone, feeling kind of a little bit restless of is anyone paying attention? which is a quote from Nick Offerman, and a title of his one of his books is "Paddle Your Own Canoe." And I take it a step further, which is build your own canoe, and then paddle your own canoe. I get stuck sometimes in this thing of like, well, it's with the exception of you and maybe my wife and a couple other close friends, is anyone listening? Like, is anyone? Not that I live off of affirmation. I mean, I do.
We do, all of us. We all do, right?
But that sense of like, being that stoic. I can't always be that stoic person who doesn't necessarily rely, on anyone. I don't know.
We all need human interaction. We do, right? It's a weird conundrum that we face that in the most connected point in history with all of our online tools, personal and professional, we tend to feel the most alone, right? Mm-hmm. That we're distanced from each other. Well, some of it is remote working. Some of it is the pandemic certainly exacerbated things over the last 5 years. But it is this kind of paradox we live in today.
I think that's what causes us to constantly seek out that dopamine hit of that dopamine hit. And then
like. Yeah. Yeah, look I got 50 likes.
Yeah. I mean, what's funny is I saw a video of that Darren had posted about you, not about you. Darren had posted about a show, and you were dancing in the
pit.
In the pit.
Circle pit, yeah.
You were more happy doing that than any sort of posting or scrolling or looking up a ska video.
I realized a while ago that I go to live music shows and I get into these pits, right, these mosh pits, because it is pure in-the-moment joy for me.
Yeah.
I don't care what I look like. I don't care. I don't think about people looking at me. I get moved by the music, and I just do my thing.
I went to the Pinball Expo. I went to the 40th anniversary International Pinball Expo in Chicago.
Nice.
And I found they had a bunch of old machines from the early times of pinball machines. This is 20s, 30s. And there's no electronic. It's all mechanic. It's brass and it's silver pins, and it was the most joyful experience.
Well, those things are things of beauty, right?
Yeah. And then over here on the other side of the hall, you have this guy's like, we've taken every pinball machine that ever exists and we put it on your iPad. Zero joy. Yeah. Zero fun.
I will tell you, there is something about the genuineness of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this goes back to the content we're talking about online as well.
Yeah.
When you see somebody sharing a personal story that they've gone through themselves, you get that genuine feeling, and you have a more deep connection with those people. Yeah. Whereas, AI-based content is so impersonal.
Well, and it's so it is the majority now.
It is.
The majority of everything you see is something that's generated, and it's even if it is a person who's publishing their business content, it's not based on experience, right?
It's often the most junior person in the company that's taken over the role of online posting.
That we need to post this stuff, and that's where my frustration comes in. Is I see an opportunity, or I see a team or a company or some sort of engagement, and I'm like, oh, I want to be part of that. And the gatekeeper is always this inexperienced or automated thing that prevents me from even getting in the,
And look, I don't want to rag on that too much, because from a marketing professional's point of view, some of those tools can be very valuable, right?
Sure.
But again, it gets back to intent and value. If your intent is to say, look at me, look at me, look at me, that wears thin very, very quickly. If your intent is to share some valuable lessons that you've learned, or share stories about your customers, for example, right?
So there's a couple keywords here. One is storytelling.
Yeah.
Tell
your lost art of storytelling.
Well, and when it comes to you, what is your story?
Yeah.
Why are you a good fit for this team? Why are you a good fit for this project? What is your story? The other thing that you're saying is value, and again, sort of the little bit of frustration I've been experiencing is I look at, hey, here's what we're looking for. and I go, wow, all 6 of those things, I have a concrete value added experience for each one of those things. Boom, here it is.
But what's in between your application to that company and actually having a conversation with them? It's often now some AI-based system that is evaluating words based on a certain set of criteria, and that's rarely seen by a live person. I did see just recently, by the way, that for the first time in a long time, I saw a friend was doing an online application. They showed me this. As they first created their profile, it gave the option to opt out of AI-based
evaluation.
Yeah, which was interesting.
Well, it's also the other word you said too is lessons, of the lessons you've learned. I now have been really seeking and sort of clearing the decks and seeking. Okay, I'm gonna seek companies that share the same values I have, that are looking for the same lessons that I've learned.
This is the Simon Sinek start with why. This is what it's really all about. And I can't tell you how many companies miss it, right? And I get that it's difficult for junior marketers in particular to go to their top executives and say, I need you to share with me on a regular basis stories, ideas, lessons you've learned that I can then promote out to the world and make us more genuine, right? It's much easier to engage with one of the generative AI systems and say, create 5 social posts about manufacturing technology in the 1990s versus today, something like that, right?
Yeah. Or if you're someone who is, who really is wanting to be an entrepreneur, let's not go into how that word has changed lately. But let's say, you want to be an entrepreneur person, and so you're aligning yourself with the Tony Robbins of the world or the Gary Vaynerchuks of the world, and you're like, oh, I can do that too. But not realizing that the way that they're making money is on the ad spend or on the ad revenue from the stuff that they're publishing, because they have a life of content that they are now publishing and getting ad revenue from.
Well, I mentioned this earlier. It's a little like those 1980s, 1990s kind of get-rich-quick real estate workshops.
Tapes,
come to Saturday at the Hyatt down by the airport, spend $1,200 and you'll learn exactly how we do this, right? Those companies or those individuals make most of their money off their workshops or selling their tapes or their digital content instead, more than they ever made, flipping houses or whatever their model was in the first place.
Doing the thing.
Yeah.
And that's okay. You can certainly go down that path if you have the experience to do it. The more experience that you have, the more successful you'll be if you want to pursue that path. The path that I want to pursue is the core principles path of the lean stuff, the no muda stuff, the stuff that got us to where we are, and then teach that to other people. So that's the other sort of pivot is, okay, for me personally, I think I'm at a point in my life where I want to teach other people that path. The entrepreneurial social entrepreneur thing. Sure, that's one path. Go ahead, try it. What I'm selling is, okay, hey, there's these things called Agile and Lean and Scrum and the Agile Manifesto and No Muda. That's what I'm selling.
Right, the 7 types of waste, right? And how to recognize them. Yes.
How to recognize them. And how to make, and spoiler alert, that's the workshop that's coming up anytime soon. And this is very helpful for helping me clarify that, of understanding, okay, that's what I want to teach people.
Well, you may remember this, what was it now, 18, 20 years ago when we first met, and you helped me start my first blog, right? That was called No Muda, right? Lean marketing. I didn't write that with the expectation that thousands of people or millions of people were going to start reading it. And I never got more than a few hundred people reading it.
Yep.
But the reason I was writing it was because it allowed me to clarify my thoughts on this new business model or this new marketing model that was emerging based on the new software development model that had emerged, right? Agile software development.
And
so,
by the way, Agile's not just for software development. I read a lot of articles on that this morning.
but it had radically changed marketing's role in technology world, right? Where previously, as you recall, we would do 1 or 2 product launches per year, and those product launches were what you based your entire marketing calendar around that, and a couple of big events during the year. In Agile software development or in Agile business models, you don't have those major events or those major product launches necessarily. You might have them every once in a while, but you don't schedule them a year out, right?
Yeah.
And so my recognition at the time was, I don't have these things to create my annual marketing plan on, which means how do I create a budget for this and how do I staff for that, right? So creating that No Muda blog at the time allowed me to think through the process and come up with ideas of different ways of organizing my market team, my marketing plan, and the budget that went along with it.
It's important to mention that methodology can be applied to not only marketing, but also project management, program management,
product management. Yeah.
Product management. It could be applied to teaching, for example, corporate education programs where, hey, here's how we do things as an organization, and applying those principles to delivering that internally to that organization.
Yeah, and if you'll recall, when we first started working on this, the key value or the key statement I made was, I want something that delivers value to the people that listen, the people that come and talk to us, the people that come to workshops, et cetera. And value is everything to me, right? And that is, again, going back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago, the online content that's being AI generated now is often not curated or not edited or not formal or personalized. And so there's very little value in it.
Right.
I sort through an hour's worth of reading on LinkedIn to find one thing of value that is thought-provoking, maybe teaches me something I haven't learned before. And it's not worth it anymore, right? That the amount of time I need to sort through that stuff is because the value is not there. What we are talking about is delivering content that is valuable for our intended audience.
Yeah, and it does start with that why statement I believe that, here's my belief, and the value of that belief is this.
That's exactly right. Why are we doing this? It's not to get rich, although, that's always a nice add-on.
Yeah, but the money money will follow good intention.
I wholeheartly believe that.
Yeah,
not always
money is
big
attracted. Money is attracted to success and intention.
Yes, and
there's actually there's social accounts. There are social media accounts that are literally like, look at how easy it is for me to make money doing this useless thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen this, but before I completely deleted Instagram from my phone, there were videos of like the original video and then next to it a different video, people teaching you like what I do to make my business and make my millions of dollars is I take this video and then I clip it to this video and then I post. There's
the whole reaction video thing.
It's not even a reaction video, too. It's people that are just like, I just put this video of marbles or whatever, and then I put it to this, and then it's just volume. For them, it's just volume.
It's volume with no value, right? It's
zero value. Yeah, and this is where, again, some of that frustration comes from is at this point, I feel like I am high value, like super, well-educated, serious professional value, and this is where I need your help on this. And then like no one's listening. Like there's no audience. So that's the trick.
That is the trick. Is how do you get to find that audience, right? And I mean, the truth is, I think if we keep doing what we're doing, and we target our audience correctly, people will start to listen, people will start to follow, and people will start engaging with us because we don't want people that are just sitting there listening, right?
Yeah.
We want people that turn around and ask questions and say, oh, this is an interesting concept. What do you do about this? Can you give a couple of examples of this, right?
So let's go back to this recruiter thing, because I've had a couple things that are worth repeating. One was, I think I might have even written it down. So I reached out to 3 different staffing agencies that I've worked with in the past. Staffing agencies usually be like, okay, I'm frustrated with LinkedIn. I'm going to call a staffing agency. And I feel like even the staffing agency, they reached out to me and they scheduled a meeting, and I looked on their website. I'm like, oh, here's these 3 cool opportunities. And then in the conversation, the person's child is crying in the background. So, they're at home. Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. And we're really not hiring right now. I'm like, but your website, that's the out of date. Like, your professionalism goes away in a heartbeat, right? And then the other one, headhunter staffing guy. I have a guaranteed way to make sure that you get 50 interviews, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'll bite.
I have been seeing this nonstop for the last month or two now.
Well, how much you think?
A couple $100.
Oh, no. $3,500 with a minimum of 3 months.
Yeah.
And I told my wife going into it, I'm like, I got this meeting with this recruiter, but I think it feels kind of like a scam. And then at the end of the conversation, she's like, how much did he want to charge you? I'm like, almost $4,000.
So I've seen this happen a few times in my professional career, and it almost always happens in times of high unemployment where people get desperate for jobs, and then the scam artists come out, right? And they try and sell these services, which are not anything, right?
It's nothing.
And anybody that's gatekeeping around job listings is, that's just a scam. That's all of it is, right?
Yeah.
And
it's I will teach you the techniques.
Yeah.
The techniques to you got to be getting 50 new contacts. No. That's volume, not value.
Yeah.
I don't need 50 new people that I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know those people, right? I go into my online and I will garden those people. I don't know that person. I don't know that person. I don't know that person.
It's interesting. It just sparked this on in me that same connection of value and real connection means a lot in what I do in the world of marketing as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I don't curate lists correctly, the people that I'm trying to talk to have no interest in my subjects, or have no interest in the conversation at all, or they've moved on to a different company and they're not at that same address anymore, right? That kind of mistake.
And the message too. Curate the message.
Absolutely right.
How often have you gotten? And Candace and I talk about this a lot because of real estate, but her mailers are very laser focused, and they're very high quality, and they only go to these certain peoples in this certain region, this certain demographic. How many times have you gotten one in the mail where it says, Jill Smith, realtor, and you go,
so
okay, no phone number, no website, and
I know the best ones I get for that are, hey, I do a lot in your neighborhood. These 2 houses just sold in your homeowners association in the last 6 months. Look at these values. If you want to talk, let's talk, right? When you're ready to talk. That feels like value. A person talking to me rather than, a flyer.
Yeah.
It's really true.
We've lost the human part. We've lost the human part of social.
Which is interesting.
We forgot that we're all humans.
The whole idea of social is human interaction, right? And not just social. I mean, the best ads now are so highly curated or highly specifically targeted. It should feel like they wrote it for you, right? Not, this doesn't really have anything to do with what I do. And the truth is, I get calls from business development reps all the time. Hey, I see you're at this company, and I really want to, are you interested in doing this? And half the time I haven't been with that company for 3 or 4 years, right? That's not what I do anymore. So why is your database so out of touch with reality, right? Out of date with everything?
Sorry. I'm not getting pneumonia.
I'm a carrier.
Oh, great.
You all right?
So it sounds like AI has really sort of empowered a lot of non-value. The pendulum has kind of shifted a little.
So I will tell you, there's been several points in my career where a new tool comes along, and I'm thinking of AI, especially generative AI, as a tool for content people, as in particular. So other tools have come along early in my career, in the late 80s, early 90s. PageMaker came along, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, anybody had this tool to do a nice page layout, a newsletter, a brochure, et cetera. And 99% of what you saw in that first 5 to 10 years was just crap. Because although anybody can design a brochure, not everybody should.
Yeah.
Right? Then the same thing happened a few years later with the first website designers, right? Those toolkits came along. And all of a sudden people had flying toaster icons on their websites, right? Just some horrible stuff.
So go back 1 second. So when you say PageMaker, you mean like actually making like
Sorry, there was a software package called PageMaker
for making like actual
for laying out a page.
page.
And it was the digital reproduction of the old cut and paste paste boards or pinup boards that you would do when you had to print things out and paste them together to create a master sheet for something. And I will tell you, those first couple of years were just ridiculous.
and then that gave rise to anyone can create a website.
That's right.
Doesn't mean you should be.
Exactly. Now we're seeing some of the same thing with video, right? We have over the last 5 or 6 years.
Yep.
There's a lot of really crappy video that you can tell people made it on their phones because they've got access to the editing software and tools for publishing.
I just recently watched the documentary about the Bitcoin heist. I can't remember what their name was, but it was. They pointed out that the girl that was the partner right, the woman, she was like just constantly. It's like this form of it goes beyond addiction, right? You have to be in front of that camera, and you have to be like. And at no point did anyone realize like does anyone want this content? It's highly cringy.
I will tell you that to me is the epitome of what we're talking about: bad content, no value added content, the get rich quick schemes. It is crypto.
Yeah,
right.
It's very much pervasive in that sort of thing of like, oh, you old timers with your centralized banking. We'll show you.
Sorting out the high value stuff there from the flood of
still
crap.
You still stole. See, even though you made up your own money,
It's just it's an unregulated industry that's ripe for scams, right? That's really what it is.
Yeah, and it does have that. It does share that same personality trait of like, I want it right now.
Yeah.
So I want it right now, but right now though.
No.
You don't get it right now.
There's this famous story about how one of the U.S.'s early, 100 millionaires, billionaires, J.P. Morgan, I think, or maybe it was Joseph Kennedy, how he managed to get all his money out of stock before the crash in 1929. And he said when his shoe shine boy was giving him tips about what stocks to buy, he knew it was time to get out of the stock market.
Get out of the stock market.
And now for me, I don't know if I told you this, about 6 months ago, I had to fly out to Phoenix and then took an Uber about 45 minutes to a conference I was going to. And the Uber driver went on and on about how he was killing it in crypto. And that to me is that same signal. Like when your Uber driver is going on about how he's getting rich in crypto, and that is a sign to stay away from and all forms of it for a while.
Yeah, I would follow up with him a year later and say, "Hey, how's it going?
You still driving?
Still driving?
Not
Uber?
that there's anything wrong with driving Uber.
No, not at all.
But I don't want to take investment tips from my Uber driver.
No. Okay. We're not going to go too much into a generational thing here, but it is a generational mindset. I think.
I think there's always been people addicted to the get rich quick schemes, right?
Yeah.
It just seems more prevalent now and easier to find things that have gone mainstream in the get rich quick world than it was 20 years ago. That's all.
Yeah, I think it's more than just get rich quick. I think it's have success now. I want to be.
Yeah.
I want success now.
Yeah.
And I think what it's in addition to that now is the notoriety or the fame or the fact that we're all walking around with cameras for some strange reason,
Yeah.
still in our pocket. Okay, so it sounds like online networking and developing developing a network of value has sort of devolved, and it's in part because of AI. Again, we don't want to sound like people standing on our get off our lawn, you young people,
No,
but
it's about the right way to use these tools, right? Because they are tools. They're all tools.
For me, with a combination of using Notion as my main writing platform and by using ChatGPT as the way to augment my writing, it really helps me think better. I mean, it helps me. It takes what usually would take me a long time, and it condenses it down into a lot shorter of a time frame.
Agreed.
And so it certainly helps me be more professional. It helps me with my writing. It helps me just get my thoughts all down. So that's where it's good. But getting back to this idea of first principles, or again, agile manifesto, these sort of things, lean. Why are we sitting here interested in it, in creating this material as someone, put yourself in the shoes of someone who would sign up for our stuff, and what value would they then bring to their organization? And before you answer, I will remind you that if you remember 2007, 2008, I left Michigan, went to California, sat in a 3-day conference, brought back value to the organization. And, not to toot my own horn, but we collectively changed a method for the better because we added value, right? We went somewhere, we learned first principles of visual design, instructional design, visual thinking. We brought that back to the sales organization, and we empowered the sales organization, which for a marketing group, that's pretty good, right? So, and then the next year, I went back and I presented my material as a, it's okay to say this, as a master of that model, and as a master of that content. So you and I have been sitting here for a while, over the course of several different episodes, sort of like, hey, what is this thing? We have this idea of no Muda, and we have an idea of sort of explaining agile and lean principles to people. What value would they then take back to their organization or their life?
So I like the way you frame this, because we're not telling them what to do. We're talking about principles. And when you embrace those principles, it gives you a new way of looking at the world, a new way of looking at your personal life, a new way of looking at your professional life, right? And in this case, what we want to do is empower people to shorten the span of time it takes to go from point A to point B. And that means accelerate their performance at their jobs, so they're contributing more at their companies. And the quid pro quo there is then they get ahead faster in their career as well. I don't mean that failure in your career or failure in a marketing department or failure in leadership is necessarily a bad thing, right? We've talked about this before. Speed to failure leads to faster learning. So trying something new, if it doesn't work, say, okay, that didn't work, and move on to try something else new until you find what does work. That mentality fundamentally changes how you work within your organization or within your own company if you're the founder or entrepreneur. Fear of failure holds people back from trying new things. And instead, we need to get rid of that mentality and celebrate trying new things and celebrate failure. And that change in mindset, if I don't get anything else across to people and what we're trying to do, except that moving away from fear of failure, embracing challenges, embracing change, if that's the only thing they come away with, I feel like I've done a huge service to that person.
Yeah. Much like, getting a professional certification, right? Getting something from a known entity, whether it's the Pragmatic Institute, what is it called
Yeah,
now?
Pragmatic Institute. That's right.
Yep. And then the Scrum Alliance, or, in different various reputable places where you can get these certifications, these things that make you. I think we also need to we need to bring back being okay with mastering something.
Yeah.
Or being, certifiably good at something, meaning you, whether it's a bachelor's degree or now in this post-college, things are changing. A lot of people are being self-taught, So again, one of the better things about being online and having all these platforms is you can, within a matter of a short period of time, you can become an expert that then makes you very valuable for an organization, or even for your own, if you want to do your own thing.
If you're a good learner, right? Some people
That's
just
true.
going through the classes, just going through listening to our podcast is not going to make you an expert at anything.
No.
You have to learn those ideas, apply them in your brain to some of the problems you've encountered over the last few years. See how you might do things differently now that you've learned about these principles.
Yeah.
And then, once you've embraced that, then you're closer to mastering something.
And I think one of the things we did mention was, what is your intention?
Yes.
So going back to this idea of, a post that I made recently, which is, rather than waiting until January 1st, on December 10th, I said, oh, okay, I'm going to take December 31st off because I'm going to just spend some time with my family. But December 10th to December 30th, I got 20 days. All right. I'm going to focus on 6 topics. And in one of them, in fact, the first one is, what are my intentions for the next year? And an intention is not, right? Let's not confuse achieving with doing, right? Because the intention is not to have X amount of dollars. My intention is I want to be part of a team that's adding value when it comes to, very specific things, whether it's education or training or, coaching, or whatever the thing is, right? So take a look at your body of work. Okay, make sure it aligns with your intention of, here's what I'm capable of, and then continue going forward of setting these intentions, and the success will follow the intentions.
I believe that 100%. And I think you and I have talked previously about this whole concept of servant leadership, right?
Yeah.
And that comes into play here as well. As I've headed larger organizations in the past, my intent is not to whip those people into making me look good. No. It's in fact just the opposite. It's how do I make them successful in what they do? And if they're doing the right things and if they're being successful, then I'm going to be seen as successful, and it's going to contribute to the entire company being successful, right? Yeah. Rather than do what I tell you to do. That is, we've all had managers like that in our careers. That's not fun for anybody. And those are the jobs that people quit when they can.
The important part of being a servant is no one is going to help you. It's you. You're doing it. So don't look for other, the not to be a nihilist, but you're on your own. It is a little bit lonely in this sense of like, because it's very noisy and populated in the sense of, the sort of get rich quick or the very noisy sort of inspo porn life of all of the misquoted nonsense, right? It is extraordinarily lonely to do this sort of thing, but I guess I keep coming back to this idea of relentlessly pursuing my own reality. I define it. So, you spend all this effort going, I need help, I need help, I need help, when the help is all inside of you.
I will tell you, there's a corollary to this as well, which is if you have the right intent and you are giving back, if you have this servant mentality, when you run into a peer, coworker, somebody else in the industry who has that same attitude, there's an instant connection.
Yeah.
I mean, because you recognize the genuine person that they are. You may not have a lot in common with them on a personal level, but if their intent is true and they really have inverted this paradigm where they're now working as a servant to enable other people to be successful, that changes the way you connect with people.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel that recently too is, spending actually quality time with people. It's a sense of like, oh, I don't need to be here, right? I'm not trying to get. This isn't a therapy session. I genuinely like hanging out with this person, and for the most part, for me, at least in my life, it's a couple of close friends, and then mostly my family. Of just being with that, the older I get, the more I like spending time with my dogs.
Nice,
but there are still a couple core people where like, oh yeah, we have the same sort of, we mesh.
Yeah, I will tell you, when you find that person in a leadership position at a company, that says a lot about the company culture, right? The corporate culture, and what it's going to be like to actually work with those people. And I will tell you, I'm not going to name names, but we both have worked for a guy named Mark.
Yep.
Who I think is ideal in this position. I mean, really,
I agree.
He's a good human being, and he's great to work with because he's all about empowering his workers and making sure people get credit for the work that they do.
Yep. Shout out to Mark. There's been a couple of, and I've written a great deal about this, which is sort of those formative years for me, from 20 to 25, 25 to 30. There's within those blocks, there's been a couple people like him, not very many, but a couple people that's who I want to emulate. So that's helpful for me as I sort of go through the next year of like, okay, what tribe do I want to associate with?
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it.
It's people like that.
I will say, conversely, when you run across somebody who is the opposite of that, right, who is all about themselves, stealing credit from others, boy, I mean, I would say run away as fast as you can. But in fact, we both worked with somebody like that as well, where I terminated that person as quickly as I could.
Stealing means more. I mean, we're not going to get into it now, but that triggered a little something in me, which is like, that those people, their attitude is stealing time, stealing effort. That is wasteful.
It is
when it comes,
absolutely,
because it gets in the way. Because they think that their way to success is, and in that person's case, that person was actually stealing. But that mentality of, I can just take this without having to work for it, that's not going to help.
Yeah, I mean, as I've gone into leadership positions through the years, I tell people, look, I am not coming in to completely remake this team. I'm not going to fire everybody and bring in my own people. I'm going to get to know you. I'm going to see what your strengths and weaknesses are. We'll see what we can do to empower you. But I also say there are only a few things I think of as fireable offenses. Yeah. One is not sharing credit, or two is stealing credit from somebody else. That is just poison to a team.
Yeah. It's not helpful. It doesn't add any value. So,
in fact, it takes away value, right? Mm-hmm. One of the things we've talked about in terms of waste is not utilizing your team's skill set to the best of your ability and the best of their ability, right? That is a waste of hours, underutilizing talent, right? That is a horrible waste. And if people are stealing credit for work that's not theirs, it's difficult to sort out who the talented people are.
Mm-hmm. So I think as we go into the new year, happy holidays, by the way.
Happy holidays.
I'm excited for the new year of what that's going to bring, because I really think that we're, each time that we do this, I think we've hone more into like, I see, this is what it is, and it might not right now be something that's necessarily marketable or saleable even, but I think that we're at a point where now we know what it is and we can start building that sort of tribe around it.
And I think we have spent the last few months now clarifying our intent.
Yes.
And now that feels very clear to me, then it's easy to move on to the next stages, which is, what are we going to do with it?
Yeah. And it's really, we're not to steal something from Dan Gilbert, but one of their isms there is, eating your own dog food, right? And we're very much doing that. The reason I bring up the isms and that sort of thing is that company culture, again, getting back to that thing of like something that you can easily point to, a common language that you can align, as a leader, you can align your team on. So looking forward to it, and we'll pick this back up after the new year.
Awesome, man. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.